Jose Luis Gonzalez, 1,000 Pine Points. Nick Ross, 500. Digital Gnosis, 250. Too bad you can't convert those Pine Points into subscribers. Digital Gnosis? Ooh, are you at over 1,000 subs yet? Hey guys, if you are in the habit of feeling sorry for people, and you haven't yet, go subscribe to Digital Gnosis channel. He's the guy I led out of Christianity and is on his way to hell now. So if you want to thank me for that, you can subscribe to his channel. Now, Trinity Radio, they're like an entry-level apologist type channel, kind of low-level stuff. They're nowhere close to like the Alvin Planticas of the world. But, they do a pretty good job for, 5th, 6th tier type of apologetics. So I thought I'd give them some more views. Oh, are you laughing, Braxton? Are you laughing, Braxton? Maybe not. Donation already. No returns. Cosmic QQ, PineCreek, and T-Jump saved my life from Christianity. Thanks, brother. Really? Thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. $10. Is that euros? That's like I'm rich now. Was that 15? What is that in Canadian? I don't know. But yeah, thank you for the donation. I saw 3-hour stream this morning. It was hilarious. Which 3-hour stream? Oh, the one on Mythvision, maybe? Oh yeah. See, I was on Mythvision's live stream yesterday. I gave a notification. And Aron showed up at the end. What was interesting about Aron is I asked him, if I paid you $1 million to deconvert someone, what method would you use to deconvert someone? So I'm paying you $1 million. Let's say 500,000 up front, 500,000 if you're successful. How would you pesky atheist deconvert a Christian, for example? And you know what his answer was? Street epistemology. Are you listening to Anthony Magnabosco? You could use that as a clip, maybe. But I found that really interesting, and I agree with him. It's you find what is the root reason. What is the fundamental cause, the impetus, the oomph that drives someone to believe. And you take that and you question them on that. And you know what? This is really going to bother apologists. 9 times out of 10, it's not the minimal facts argument. It's not the prophecies. It's not the philosophical arguments for God. It's not the contingency argument. It's not the Kalam cosmological argument. It's typically, I was raised in it, although some will admit, but very few. And so that's how they see the world, because they were raised in it. And secondly, they went through a period of doubt and tragedy or existential crisis, and then they decided to set out and see if this is true, but they still have that lens that they're looking through. And they look at all the evidence and all the philosophical arguments, and they conclude, wouldn't you know that the belief system I was raised in, those core propositions I was raised in, happened to be true all along. Amen. Praise Jesus. Hallelujah. And praise Allah. Hallelujah. Muslims do the same thing. Mormons do the same thing. So the issue is, how do we lower our biases? Our biases. If you're a Christian out there, Doug, did you say you don't have any bias? No, I'm not saying that. The real question is, if we value the single truth, how do we lower our biases and see the evidence for what it is or lack of? And this is what I did and why I'm no longer a Christian. But in this video that we're about to watch, there's some pretty jaw-dropping statements. And thanks to the subscriber who told me about it, I would not have watched this. I stopped watching their content when they actually hurt my heart. Hang on a second. But about a month ago, I was blocked from Trinity Radio, and I thought it was a channel for atheists. And I know I'm not the biggest atheist in town, but I thought I was loved there. Excuse me. And so my heart was squashed when I found out I was blocked, when I was asking great questions, I thought, and realized that nobody could see the questions. Excuse me. And so I just felt betrayed, and I stopped watching their content, and I thought we had some simpatico going on. I would help them, but I guess maybe it's me. Maybe it is a channel for atheists. The Trinity Radio YouTube channel is for atheists, but just not this atheist. But I said to myself, PineCreek, you can be the better man. You can still review this, even though that they will ignore me. Because I don't need the attention. It's okay, Doug. You don't need it. So this was a great question by Eddie Vasquez about, there's two things I want to play here, two questions. And the question is about Mormons exorcising demons. And how do you deal with that?
Trinity Radio, how would you respond to someone who claimed that their grandfather exorcised demons as a Mormon if they have the wrong Jesus? How were they able to do that? Well,
I'd have to invest. I'd have to know something about the claim.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, this is why it hurts so much that I am no longer loved at Trinity Radio. But excellent point. Like, I just agree with these guys so much. Thank you, Beowulf, for the donation. Money for B-movie acting? You're giving me money for B? I have no idea what you're talking about, but thank you for the donation. I would say it's at least A+ movie acting. But it's like, I am in agreement with Braxton and Jonathan that just because someone says that they exorcise demons doesn't mean that actually happened. Right? Just because the Bible says certain miracles were performed, like exorcising demons, that doesn't mean it happened. Right? Can I get an amen from Braxton?
Yeah, I don't know.
You notice Braxton's first response is, besides, we don't know if it actually happened. Yeah, I don't know. But what if it did happen, Braxton? What if a Mormon actually, who believes in the wrong Jesus, according to this question, and I think the Trinity Radio would agree with that, that's a false cult or whatever. If it did happen, well, how do you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, just because we believe that there are supernatural crazy things happening in the world doesn't mean we believe every claim that it did.
Excellent. Just because you believe in miracles and these type of crazy things doesn't mean you believe all of it. Jonathan, challenge for you. Out of all the miracle claims in the New Testament, tell me which ones you reject. Any? Now, if your answer is none because you trust, you have faith that everything in the New Testament is true, how did you come to that conclusion? That every claim in the New Testament is true and reliable? How would you figure out if it wasn't, if you were coming into it believing that it is true, every claim?
Also,
the skeptic in me initially rejects most of them on spec until I hear more evidence.
The skeptic in you rejects most miracle-type claims like exorcism until the evidence comes in. What type of evidence exactly, Jonathan, would you need to see in order to believe that a Mormon exorcised demons out of another Mormon? Or even out of a Christian, your type of Christian for that matter. What type of evidence would you need to see? Please, I dare you to answer that, because this is a trap question. Because in the back of your mind, you know I'm going to ask for that same, I'm going to compel you to use that same standard for the New Testament claims. So you can't say stuff like, well, I would want to meet that person who had the demon exorcised from and interview them. You can't say that. Because if that's the evidence you require for this Mormon exorcism, you would require that of Jesus. But you can't go back 2,000 years ago and interview Jesus or that man who had the demons exorcised out of him and went into pigs. You can't do that, can you? So you got to be very, very careful how you answer that question, Jonathan. Because knowing that, unless you just flat out say, no, I have a double standard. I admit it, Doug, yeah. I require more evidence to believe that a Mormon exorcised demons out of another Mormon compared to what happened in the Bible. Doug, you got me. I'm going to special plead this, but the New Testament is special. Special. And so, yeah, my standard, the bar is high for Mormonism, is really low for what I currently believe. Now, if you say that, kudos to you. You're being honest with your hypocrisy. And part of me respects that.
We accept the existence of the demonic as we do because we think it's a system-dependent belief. These are beings that have existed for a long, long, long time, right? Mm-hmm. People, have you ever read the Screwtape Letters, which obviously is
which is a documentary,
giving you some speculative idea of how things can happen. Well, here's the thing. Think about this. We have some of the most elaborate strategies, military strategies, courtroom strategies, things like that. And we only live 80 years, 100 if we're lucky, right? Okay,
where's it going with this?
These
Where are you
demonic
going?
entities can come up with really strange strategies.
Whoa. Okay, this is where he's going with this. Like, it is really strange for a demon to... This is what he's saying. I'm hearing him say that, okay, let's say a Mormon has a demon in him, and then another Mormon exorcises this demon out. I'm hearing Braxton say this is like one of these really complicated strategies that the evil one has, that these demons have. But here's the problem with that answer, Braxton. I seem to remember a verse in Matthew chapter 12 that says, a house divided cannot stand. Why would? That was Jesus' answer. That's what Jesus would say to you, Braxton, if that's your answer, that these are complicated strategies that demons use to deceive. But why would a demon cast out another demon in the name of Jesus? And if you're open to that idea, how did you figure out that Jesus wasn't using the power of demons to exorcise demons when he did it? You see how dangerous this is?
Like a possession that then seems to have been exorcised, right? Yeah. There's all kinds of demonic stuff that can go on. So I would want to know that it happened first. And even then, like we said...
I would want to know if it happened first. Me too. How would we determine if a demon was actually exorcised out of a human being and it's just not some psychological, environmental type of conjuring up? What do you call that? There's a psychological term for that. It's not prodding. It's like not triggering. Someone in the live stream chat can tell me who knows anything about psychology, because I know nothing about psychology. But there's some type of psychological, sociological word for that when people have this idea of demons, and then they get in their head from maybe others or themselves that they have a demon, and then they start acting out what they think a demon would do, and then they start acting out what they believe would happen if a demon was exorcised, and they start to shake and all this sort of thing. And some of them might just be plain nuts, and some of them might be just plain crazy, and some of them have a legitimate mental illness, and that's why they're shaking and all these things. But how would you, Braxton, figure out if this really did happen? And again, the same question I asked to Jonathan, you have to be so incredibly careful how you answer that question, because whatever you answer, I'm going to ask the same, or have you apply that standard for Jesus's claims, or the authors of the New Testament, what they claim.
But like we've been saying, what's the source
Priming.
of that
Thanks.
supernatural event?
Hey,
Thank you, Brent Lusky. Priming, psychosomatic. Yeah, that's true too. Projection. Those all work.
Harvey's stay there.
What?
Down at the bottom. The
Harvey
last, put
Schmervey?
yeah. Right. The Republican Party.
Okay, this is what really made my jaw drop. But you know what? As I went live, I was thinking about this question and what they're going to say. And I think, like, literally in the last 10, 15, 20 minutes, my mind is changing on this, and you'll see why.
Is not the Christian Party. The Democrat Party is not the Christian Party. The Constitutionalist Party, the Libertarian Party, none of that. If Christians would actually get together, theologically conservative Christians and evangelicals and all of that, got together and decided that they've had enough of both of the parties and decided to have a real third party, it would be a third party built to compete because there's still a large number of people that would take votes from both of the other parties, and you could have a legitimate Christian party if they could ever agree on politics. And it turns out that when you look at the
Jonathan Pritchett is advocating that the Christian evangelicals, a certain branch of Christianity, ought to start a political party in the United States. My question is to, I guess mostly my atheist viewers listening, is, do you support that? If yes, why? If no, why? And I'm gonna poison the well here. Half an hour ago, I didn't support it, but then I started thinking about it. And you know what? I definitely support evangelical Christians getting together and making their own political party. That would be fantastic. And you know why? Because we can get them up on stage in front of national viewers and have national debates and ask them poof or drown questions. Ask them if they would support stoning of homosexuals. Ask them if it's okay using the Bible to say murder is wrong, why can't we say practicing homosexuality is wrong, and give them similar punishments? Why? Tell me, on the basis of your evangelical beliefs, why it's okay to put people in jail for stealing, but not putting people in jail for worshiping Vishnu. Explain that to me. Oh man, I tell you, this would distinguish evangelical Christianity so fast if they became their own political party and had to start publicly defending and letting even other evangelicals know exactly what they believe, because most of the evangelicals they don't know what they believe. I know, and many of ex-Christians who are subscribers to my channel, they know what Christians believe more so than they do, or at least what their scripture teaches. Oh man, it's a fantastic idea. So Jonathan, how can we make this happen? I'm thinking, 2024. We've got to get some big money involved, though. Like, what's a Hobby Lobby? The CEO or the owners of Hobby Lobby, they have billions of dollars. Let's tap into that, and let's start an evangelical Christian political party in the United States. I think there's at least 25% of the 65% Christians in the United States are that. So yeah, you're right. You would have a huge voting bloc. Let's get that done.
Evangelicals who vote for Democrats and the evangelicals who vote for Republicans, overwhelmingly white evangelicals vote for Republicans, overwhelmingly black evangelicals vote for Democrats. They on a lot of things they actually agree on. And so if all and then Latino, they're kind of split between the two parties as well, evangelical Christians and Catholics. And if you did have a mere Christianity approach to this.
Did he say what? What?
Evangelical Christians and Catholics. And if you did have a mere Christianity.
And if you did have a mere Christianity approach, oh, this is where I lose respect for you, Jonathan. It's like, come on. Mere Christianity? You want an evangelical Christian party that's just based on mere Christianity? Come on. Jesus is not smiling when you say that. James White's smiling right now. But Jesus isn't smiling when you say that. Jesus wants you to accept all of Christianity, not just the mere Christianity. My goodness, so disappointing. It's like, come on, own your beliefs. Just don't say, oh, we just want to highlight this, this, and this. No, own it.
The approach to this, go wider. We're Catholics and evangelicals. White, black, Latino, Asian, the Korean Baptist Church.
The reason why he's saying reduce it down to mere Christianity is because you can't get Roman Catholics and Protestants to agree on some issues. You can't get the Calvinists and non-Calvinists to agree on some issues. You can't get the Unitarians and the Trinitarians to agree on some issues. You have to reduce it to maybe, just maybe, Jesus rising from the dead body, and that is it. Otherwise, this won't work. But I do want it to work. So I guess I have to agree with Jonathan then. Because I do want to get evangelical Christianity out in the public arena to be debated.
Everyone got together as Christians, as Orthodox Christians, and formed a political party that was a Christian party. It would be a great thing. But why we don't do...
Is there water dripping in their background? Like Trinity Radio, did you pay your plumbing bill? It sounds like you got... Did anybody else hear that? It sounds like there's water dripping from the roof. Are you guys wearing rubber boots underneath that?
It escapes me, but we have enough leaders and spokespeople who can say, you know what, maybe we should try this. You get John Piper, and you get...
oh, yes. Oh, this is beautiful. I will help you guys. Let's start a Christian political party, and let's have John Piper on the ticket for president. Oh, my goodness. And then do ads of him saying, oh, Jesus can kill all the babies he wants. Oh, this is fantastic. This is the best idea you've ever had in your life, Jonathan. We got to make this a reality.
Al Mohler, and you get Franklin Graham, and you get all these people in a room and say, hey, why don't we stop voting for Republicans and Democrats and actually have a Christian political party in America?
Well,
that might be something.
You think that's going to ever happen?
No.
Well, you're wrong.
Whoa. This is what do you call it? Action TV. This is suspense to the full. This is like better than watching HBO.
Because
really?
One day, democracy
when Jesus comes, okay.
Stop.
That's what you...
One day, democracy will crumble. See, I agree with the...
One day, democracy will crumble. And this is good. Here it comes.
Wise philosopher Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars.
This comes, okay.
Stop.
That's what you...
One day, democracy will crumble. See, I agree with the wise philosopher Anakin Skywalker from...
I know he's being kind of facetious here, but I just love it that Braxton is about to compare a fictional story, the Star Wars story, to Christianity. This is great.
From Star Wars Episode 2, when sitting in the grass with the alien cow things, with Padme, he says, I believe we need one leader, one wise leader, who will make all the decisions for everyone and rule justly. I agree. That's right. Anakin was right. The thing is, he's describing Jesus.
Yeah. What we need is a theocracy with Jesus ruling. What we need is a theocracy where Jesus says not one dot or tittle will be removed from the law. What we need is a theocracy where a dictator rules named Jesus, who says, I will separate the sheep from the goats. And whoever denies me before man, no, whoever denies me before my Father, I will deny. No, I was right the first time. Whoever denies me before man, I will deny before the Father. That's the dictator we need in the United States. And don't fear men, but fear Jesus or the devil, who can not only kill you, but throw you in the pits of hell. That's the dictator we need.
doesn't live on no Death Star, baby. And one day, Jesus is going to come. And it will be a Christian kingdom, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I wonder when that's going to happen. You want to take a bet, Braxton? I'll bet you $10,000 Jesus doesn't return in the next 5 years. We can write it up with the lawyers. You want to do that, Braxton? I don't even know if you have 10,000. Oh. But yeah, how would you collect on that? Okay, so if Jesus comes in the next 5 years and starts up that Christian dictatorship, if that actually happens, I owe Braxton $10,000. But is that money any good to him when Jesus? I think so. You could still. I'm sure Jesus would let you spend that money, Braxton. Hey, Scott Duke, thank you for the donation and $5 towards the $10,000 bet fund. Start an atheist party, then we'll get a Christian party. Yeah, well, there you go. That's an idea as well. Can I be the dictator of the atheist party? Because would be if I became a dictator for the atheist party in the United States. My first major thing on my platform is I promise not to drown babies. And I can say, I never have drowned babies and I never will. And then if I debate Jesus, then we can discuss that topic. And then, what's his name? Daniel Wallace could say, well, according to the Old Testament, it says here that you drown babies at some point in your life. Is that in history? Is that correct? And I'll be just standing on the other side. Answer the question. Jesus, can you say categorically right now in front of the American public that you are against drowning babies in the past, now, and forevermore? The American public is listening. Oh, this is just so much fun. Thank you, Trinity Radio, for bringing my life hope, meaning, and purpose.
Right. You didn't think you thought that sounded too spiritual? Is that what it is?
Yeah, because you asked me a question.
I'm sorry. You made me feel slimy talking about politics, and so I had to go for the ideal.
Well, I'm saying,
but this is they're kind of joking around here, but they're not joking. I don't think they're really joking about that idea that they do desire a theocracy, a dictatorship where Jesus is the leader. It's pretty scary, right? And remember, morality, according to Jesus, is not based on well-being and suffering. It's based on his nature. So it's not, necessarily to make society better in that sense. But don't worry, it's all good, because whatever Jesus says, does, thinks, wills, decrees is good by definition.
How about we Christians actually form a Christian party so we don't have to deal with Republicans and Democrats? You have all these Christian leaders out there.
Derek, I feel bad because you just gave us $50.
Yeah. I think a lot of Christians, evangelicals, feel this way is because they do see Trump as morally debauched. And they don't like that. Now, some evangelicals don't care. They say that, well, the more important thing is stuff like abortion. And then you got the wacko Republicans who say that Jesus is, well, I shouldn't say wacko. This might be the majority of evangelicals. Is this true? The majority of evangelicals would say that God placed Trump as president of the United States on purpose. I mean, I think the Bible says that, right? At all governing authorities. But keep in mind that applies to Hitler too, I guess, that God placed Hitler in his position for some unknown reason. Yeah, Camille, I do like their pink background. It's nice. We got the pink and my blue. It's like simpatico. I think that's all I wanted to play from that. But yeah, Braxton, if you can come up with some way we can make a bet, $10,000, I'll bet you that Jesus doesn't return in the next 5 years. I'll even give you odds. He would never take that bet. Okay, yesterday, I was on Mythvision's live stream, and Aron showed up, and I said to Aron, you do realize that Christians love it when you get mad at them. And it's like, it's a win-win in a way, for Aron Ra. And so then I was thinking maybe I should become more like Aron Ra. Because, if my goal is just to be loved, which I don't get anymore from Trinity Radio, then, atheists would love me more if I, swear and really get emotional about this stuff. And so I get like more support from atheists. But even then, the Christians actually love it when Aron Ra gets mad at them and swears at them, because then they feel they're persecuted for Christ's sake. And they say, oh, look how we triggered him and all these sort of things. And so it's really maybe a great strategy for Aron Ra to do that. But I just wanted to point out that this is maybe a video that most people don't watch. It's Ask Cliff's YouTube channel. And Aron Ra and T-Jump, they debated Cliff and, what's his name? The son. Let's just call him Myron. Cliff and Myron debated them. And you can hear that they really do like it when Aron Ra goes off. I'll show you some clips of that here.
He worships something. The only question is what?
It's interesting. We just made that point to kind of this pop atheist in a debate. And he said, how dare you call me religious? And he almost, you could see him losing it. Do you typically get that? I mean, why are atheists? Obviously, it kind of makes sense for them to.
Yeah, you see how he's smiling. He's like, see how I triggered him? It's like, they just, this pop atheist. And he's talking about Aron Ra here. He just goes off when you call them religious. And they love it. And so in a way, Aron Ra, if you ever watch this, you're feeding right into that. By the way, for the record, if a guy like Cliff or Myron here, what's his real name? I shouldn't call him Myron. Stuart, thank you, Blamstickful, whatever your name is. Stuart, yeah, it's, if you were to ask me or say to me, PineCreek, you're religious. I go, well, maybe, depending on how you define it. PineCreek, you have faith. Oh, maybe, depending on how you define it. How you define it. If he defines it like faith is just trust, and sure, there's things, people and things and ideas that I trust. Okay, I have faith. Oh, and if you define religion as like maybe just a certain worldview and things, yeah, sure. Okay, I'm religious. But then I would ask questions like, why don't you join my religion? And questions like, how would you know when your faith is mistrust? I have markers, do you? See, it opens up so many more doors when you give them almost everything they want. Because you know why? It doesn't make a difference. Because I can use their language and say, because we got the truth on our side. Oh, they hate that. Actually, is that true, Christians listening right now? Do you hate it when I say I can almost grant you everything you want? It doesn't matter because I got truth on my side and you don't. What goes through your body right now when I say that? Is there anything in you that flinches at all? I'm just curious.
Key off on any Christian who says that you are religious, but I totally agree with you. And I think if you get at whether it's in the Latin religio, it's how you bind things together, or if how you get after it in terms of, yet we all have to answer these major issues. So maybe you're not religious in the sense of buying into one of the major world religions. Right. Mm-hmm. And yet certainly we are all religious, especially in terms of the scrupulosity, the fine-tooth comb that we go over in all the details of our lives. I think it's also an important point to make in pushing atheists, and I see you do this quite well, pushing atheists to say, it's not just I don't believe in God, but you have a worldview. And typically if you push them far enough, they'll say something like, okay, fine, I'm an atheistic humanist.
Right. They all have...
Yeah, they really hate that. They, meaning these three. They really hate atheists saying, I just lack a belief in your God. There is a Hindu god that some people worship in India that I am not aware of. I know nothing about. And let's not even call it a Hindu god, just a god. There's some person somewhere on this planet who believes a certain god exists, and I know nothing about this person or the god they worship. In that case, I truly lack a belief in that god. I know nothing about it. I'm unaware of it. And I would say these three would be the same. But I would say I'm a hard atheist against Christianity. and actually all the Abrahamic faiths. So I can give them a little bit what they want, but still make them a little frustrated at the same time.
Positive worldviews. It's been real fashionable lately to say atheists.
Frank Turek is worth $5 million? Frank, you got the cash then? $10,000 bet Jesus doesn't return in the next 5 years. You want to take me up on it? You won't.
To say, well, I just lack a belief in God, right? And I say, well, if that's your definition of atheism, then really what you're just talking about is your psychological state, right? You're not telling us anything about the real world out there. You're not really telling us whether...
Frank doesn't realize that can be turned right back on him. When you say there is a God, Frank, you're just telling me about your psychological state, right? Couldn't I say exactly this right back at you? Listen, Frank.
Psychological state, right? You're not telling us anything about the real world out there. You're not really telling us whether or not God exists. You're just saying that you psychologically lack a belief in God. Well, so what? This water bottle lacks a belief in God. We don't call it an atheist, right?
But we do call some rocks theists, because it says in the New Testament that if people don't worship God, the rocks will cry out. So we know rocks are theists. A puppy lacks a belief in God. We don't call it an atheist. An atheist is someone who says positively there is no God. Now, they may have various shades of certainty. Okay, Frank, I'm not an atheist then. Doesn't matter to me. If you define atheism, that atheist says there are positively no gods of any sort, of any kind, okay, doesn't matter. I can give you that.
About that. So whenever somebody brings that up, Stuart, I always ask the question.
Part of me, Joe, wants. I think there's a part of you, Frank, that wants to call me an atheist, though. So you have a reason to dislike me just a little bit more, or push back against me just a little bit more, or have someone to fight against just a little bit more. It's like, and this is one, going back to Jonathan Pritchett. This is one thing that he says often, and I agree with him. It's like, if atheism is such a small percentage of the U.S. population or the world's population, who cares what atheists say, think, do, whatever, on YouTube or on social media? Why are you guys, for people who don't believe in atheists, you sure talk about atheists a lot, quoting Paulogia.
If they say I lack a belief in God, I say, okay, let's not argue semantics. Let me just ask you one question. Here's a proposition: God exists. Do you agree with that proposition? Do you disagree with that proposition, or you don't know?
Frank, proposition: Allah exists. Do you agree with that proposition, or do you disagree with that proposition? Frank would say, well, if you mean by Allah the non-Trinitarian view of a creator God, I'd say no. Okay, so you're an atheist towards Allah. See how that works? It's not that complicated, Frank.
Which one of those three describes you? And typically they'll say, I don't know. I say, well, you're an agnostic then, right? You don't know. That's what it means, to not know. If you say God doesn't exist, you're an atheist. If you say God does exist, you're a theist. You're one of those three. What else could you be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, listen to this.
Interesting. And I love pushing atheists kind of far enough, because typically most of them are agnostics, kind of, or agnostic atheists. Or
are you an agnostic theist, Stuart? Or are you a Gnostic theist? Does this question even make sense to you? Like, maybe you're an agnostic as well. If you're calling atheists agnostics, or most of them, maybe you're an agnostic.
Now, how about when it comes to just your top maybe 3, 4, 5 points on why is Christianity rational?
Yeah, this I don't get. I don't get. Why, Christians, do you need to be viewed as rational? It's like, please don't think I'm crazy. Please don't think I'm stupid. I am rational for my beliefs. And I want other Christians to know that they too can be rational for your beliefs. This is like what I pounded Randall Rouser on. Are you guys so incredibly insecure psychologically that you need for yourself and others to view you as rational? Especially given that your own scriptures say, and I'm going to take some liberties here, The gospel is irrational to those who are perishing. So don't even try. Don't even try to make yourselves seem rational to the unbeliever. Now, maybe you need to for yourself, so you just don't feel like you're so stupid or something. But when it comes to interacting with people who are non-Christians, please just assume that we will always view you as irrational. And be okay with it. But this is the reason why they're not okay with it. Because evangelicals have to evangelize. And it's really hard to evangelize and share the gospel to someone who just thinks you're nutso, that thinks you're crazy, that thinks you're irrational on this topic. And so you got to keep coming up with ways to convince people that you're not crazy, that you're not irrational, that you are rational for believing this stuff. And thus, the philosophy of religion was born.
So there's the God argument, but more specifically, why is Christianity rational? What would be your main go-tos?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I go through 4 questions: truth, God, miracles, New Testament, right? Particularly the resurrection. Because again, if the resurrection occurred, then Jesus is God and Christianity is true.
Okay, here's my advice to Frank Turek, Cliff, and Stuart. I don't know if Cliff and Stuart say this, but we had just heard Braxton Hunter and Jonathan Pritchett say this. You guys, you don't realize you sound like idiots when you say that? Let me rewind so we can be clear what you're saying.
Again, if the resurrection occurred, then Jesus is God and Christianity is true.
Now, that is a meaningless statement, and here's why. How powerful is this statement? If Gabriel actually spoke the very words of Allah to Muhammad, then Islam is true. If Jesus and the angel Moroni actually spoke to Joseph Smith and showed him where the golden plates were, then Mormonism is true. If Ganesh, Vishnu, if the core propositions of Hinduism is true, then Hinduism is true. I hear Michael Licona say this stuff. I hear Gary Habermas say this stuff. I hear Frank Turek saying this stuff. Can you at least hear it in other religions, just how stupid a comment that is? It's just like, you're just saying, well, if I'm 6 feet tall, then I'm 6 feet tall. If it's true that I'm 6 feet tall, then I'm 6 feet tall. That's just okay. The real question is, how do we figure out whether or not it's true or not?
And everything falls like dominoes after that if Jesus has risen from the dead. Why?
Why? Yeah, I want to hear the answer to that.
Look, I just have a personal policy. If somebody rises from the dead, I just trust whatever the guy says.
Can we get Lazarus from the Gospel of John in here? Hey, Satan, can you do that for me? Frank just says that whoever rises from the dead, he just believes, follows. Yeah. Ask Yahweh if you can bring Lazarus in here. What? Lazarus from the Gospel of John is not a real person? Okay. Well, find a real person that rose from the dead. Like, isn't there some claim, Satan, about people rising from the dead in, like, Africa somewhere? Yeah, that guy. Get him in here. Frank wants to be his follower. Oh. See, Frank, how stupid this is? Now, I'm sure you're going to now special plead and say, no, Doug, come on, Doug. I meant the one guy who rose from the dead, not all the other people who rose from the dead. The one guy who predicted. The one guy who authors 20, 30, 40 years later said that he predicted that he would die and rise from the dead. That's the guy I follow. Don't be silly, Doug.
Okay, so it's very rational. In fact, you really only need to show two facts: that God exists and Jesus rose from the dead. Because if God exists, then miracles are possible, like a resurrection. And if he miraculously rose Jesus from the dead after it was predicted.
Okay, what's the probability that a God exists, Frank? Now, what's the probability that this God actually does miracles? What's the probability that a God exists and he does miracles? You realize that when you multiply those two probabilities, you get a lower probability? Now let's add this. What's the probability that your God exists and he does miracles and he does a specific miracle called raising Jesus from the dead? Now we got two ands and three claims here, each with their own probability. My goodness. I'm teaching my my daughter math right now, and there's like this rule that says if the probability of one thing multiplied by the probability of another thing, if it's like between 0 and 1, and multiplied by probability of another, it just keeps getting lower and lower. So even if you say the probability of a God existing versus not existing is 50-50, and you start adding on to that this God actually interacts with the world and does miracles, and then really just, hey, 2,000 years ago, a guy said that he was God. So, man, that's probably true. And this, it says some records say that he did miracles, and so that it's probably true. And so if he did these miracles and said he was God, then for sure this God that has a 50% chance of existing would want to raise this particular person from the dead.
Then he is God. He's validated his claim to be God. And so those are the two questions or the two facts you need.
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to give a plug for Camille and Cam's channel. It's called Cam and Cam, CAM and KAM. They have a lot of videos where we discuss things like what's the prior probability that even if we say a God exists, what's the prior probability that he would desire to raise a man named Jesus who made all these claims and even perform miracles? Still, you can give the Christian whatever they want. Does that really raise the prior probability that Jesus would desire, that God would desire to raise him from the dead? Because as we saw earlier with the Trinity Radio video, don't they believe that demons can do miracles? Don't they believe that demons can influence people to think that they are God in flesh? Why would we believe that just because Jesus said he was God and just because he did miracles, that means he's God in flesh? Man.
Need to establish. I also think Christianity is rational because our ability to reason makes much more sense on theism than atheism, right? I mean, if we're just molecular machines, as many of the atheists say to.
Yeah, and Frank's said this many, many times. I'm trying to think of a simple way to tell Frank and people like Frank when they say this, that it doesn't. What you're doing is you're really just trying to help Christians feel better about themselves, that they're not stupid. But there's just so many errors you're making that you're thinking that an atom is the same as a complex organism that evolved over millions of years. Or you're question begging and basically defining things like rationality as something that can only happen if there's a deity. Same thing is done with morality all the time. Many of you guys define morality and rationality and reasoning and free will and all these things to entail a deity in the first place. But the thing is, I'm not insecure like you guys are. So if you want to define it that way, then I can say, fine. I don't have any rationality. I don't have any reasoning. I don't have any morality. I don't have any of these things if you're defining it that way. What difference does it make? Maybe it makes a difference to you, so you just feel better about yourselves and so you can fall asleep at night. I was trying to find another part where they talk about Aron Ra. Let's see if I can find it. And how they actually do want to be sworn at. Christians like Cliff and Stuart, they want atheists to swear at them, I think. See if I can find it. Oh yeah, here's another. I think this is it.
So atheists clearly don't like going that far, but I love when they do go that far in their consistency. So there's that one, but then there's also kind of a couple pop atheists who we've debated recently who really didn't even go with that type of Sam Harris thinking. Instead, they said, we're strong materialists, and yet we also believe in free will.
Oh yeah, this is something different. But yeah, he's talking about T-Jump and Aron Ra there. Yeah. I'm just, I would love to talk to just everyday normal Christians. These guys are abnormal. And see if what these guys are saying resonates with them. I have a feeling it doesn't. By the way, I've known of Cliff for at least 20 years. 15 years? Hang on. Yeah, I'd say at least 15 years. He came to the University of Arizona, and I think that's where he started doing his street preaching type stuff. And I remember when I was a Christian, sorry, Cliff, if you hear this, but you turned me off more than turned me on. But why is that? Maybe it was because I was already starting to doubt. Let's see, how old was I then? No, I don't think I was really starting to doubt. It just, I don't know. I think maybe it was because you were discounting some of the experiential intertestament of the Holy Spirit type stuff and trying it. I think this is what it was. I think even as a Christian 15 or so years ago, no, was it 15 years ago? Yeah. That it just seemed like you were trying to rationalize, trying to help yourself and other Christians not feel stupid, rather than really pursuing truth. See, if Cliff was to come on my channel right now, I guarantee you that we would talk about stuff that he does not want to talk about. Hey, thank you for the donation, Tony D. I am now bored of all this. How can sane adults actually believe this silliness? They are scared to die, grow up people. Well, fear of death is, I think, a big one, but it also has to do with hope, meaning, and purpose. But here's my advice to Aron Ra, T-Jump, any atheist who talks to Cliff. I'm not sure if Cliff, you're invited to come on my show if you ever hear this. But this is the stuff I think you do not want to talk about. And that is your personal testimony. I'm going to ask you if you've seen a demon. I'm going to ask you if you've seen an angel. I'm going to ask you about the details of a miracle that you think you've seen. And we're going to discuss it and come up with the second best explanations for these things. I'm going to ask you how you figured out whether the personal relationship you have with Jesus is real to something external to you or just your own psychology. And I'm going to make a bold, arrogant statement right now. I know you struggle with these things. I know it. Maybe you don't struggle with it every single hour of every single day. But I know you struggle with the will of God and these sort of things. I know you realize that your relationship with Jesus is not as good, on one level at least, as your relationship with your son, Stuart. I know you've given Stuart hugs. I know you've talked to Stuart and you've heard his voice and you guys have communicated in two directions. And I know you have not done that with Jesus. This is the stuff that atheists need to talk about with guys like Cliff, guys like Frank. They know this is a problem. And getting back to Aron Ra, this is why Aron Ra says they're going to end up saying, I believe it by faith. I believe by faith I have a personal relationship. These guys are scared to they're scared of being viewed as irrational and silly and all this sort of thing, but they're even more terrified of viewing themselves this way. I see through you guys. But I thank you for giving me hope, meaning, and purpose. Why don't I like doing debates? Number one, it takes an incredible amount of work. Number two, I think what I do is more effective. Not to say debates can't sway people, but who knows? Maybe someday I'll do debates. But yeah, it's just like, what is a debate? Is it like the formal thing where you have openings and... Because, be honest, how many people here, when they watch a debate, fast forward to the point where they do the back and forth section, right? And isn't that basically a conversation at that point and not a debate type structure? That's what I do, at least. I was going to do another translation of Aron Ra and their most current debate. And I started working on it, but then I thought, you know what? Let's make this a one-off. Aron Ra said that his mom watched my first translation of him and almost died of laughter. So I don't want to kill Aron Ra's mom. Mason Galaioth says, don't you think that being so charitable with Christians allows them to weasel out of answering honestly by using technicalities? Sometimes, but let the viewer watch that unfold. Like, there's many discussions I've had that are on my channel where I just let the theists talk and then throw in a very specific question to something they've said, and they just end up hanging themselves so many times. Hey, thank you for the donation, Uberscheiser. Awesome channel, Doug. The rest of this message is just to use up the remainder of the 150 characters, since I want to get the most from my money, okay? I understand what you're saying, but thank you for the donation. Poof. Whoops. Poof. Hey, Cliff, you're invited to my channel for a conversation. I guess Stuart too, but I prefer Cliff because he's more my age. And Frank, $10,000 bet to you that Jesus will not come in the next 5 years. We can set it up with our lawyers, somehow figure out how the payouts go, put it in escrow. I think you can afford it. If it's true, you're worth $5 million. $10,000 bet that Jesus will not return in the next 5 years. You know, the way the New Testament says he's going to return. You know, like the pre-trib type thing. I don't even know if Frank's a pre-tribber, though, so he's not going to take this bet. Anyhow, have a great day, guys. Take care.